Hello. Woo, here we are. Me and Shruti. Yes, and we are talking Tailwind CSS. I am so excited about this. Woo, thank you so much for coming, Shruti. It's amazing to see you here. Yeah, awesome.
Thank you so much for inviting. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, really excited to learn about Tailwind. I don't think I've ever used it, but I've been looking at it in preparation for this, and it's come up separately somehow anyway, and it looks pretty cool. Michael's here. I think he uses Tailwind. Yeah, really looking forward to this. Hoping Tailwind will help me not learn CSS. Yes, amazing. Well, let's find out. Yes, many people have joined in the chat as well. And Debjit is hitting me with those tigers already. Yes, if you don't know what that's about, we have a little thing here. If you're new, we ask you to drop a bunny rabbit into that chat. And if you've been before, hit me with that tiger, just like Debjit. We don't do anything with this information. It's just for fun. Yeah. And just to give you a little bit of an overview, I suppose, I have prepared some tailwindy questions which I'm planning to ask. But most importantly, we have a demo, I believe, Shruti. Yeah, what can you tell us about that?
Yes, it's very difficult to demo something in the short time, but yeah, I just have a simple profile card that I would like to demo, showcasing as much of Tailwind features as possible for beginner level.
Yeah, excellent.
And I would also, if time permits, I would also demo an installation of Tailwind CSS.
Yes, excellent. That sounds absolutely fabulous. And if you have questions about Tailwind, of course, drop them into that chat and I will do my best to answer them all. And I am seeing a lot of bunny rabbits in the chat, so welcome to you all. And a lot of tigers as well, a nice mix today. So yes, thank you for coming. If you are new here and you don't know who we are or what's going on, I am from Scrimba, which is this site right here, where we teach you to code. Basically, we have loads and loads of courses, even more than this. This is just the ones that I'm looking at. Yes, we have all of these and probably some more. So come and check Scrimba out. In the meantime, let's get started with Tailwind, I suppose. My first question to you is, why use Tailwind?
Right, that's a very good question. CSS as such is great. If you really understand CSS, then there's a lot of things you can do on your own without a framework. But Tailwind CSS is a framework that makes it so much more faster. Like there are a lot of styles that browser applies by default, and different browsers apply they have different defaults, right? And if you just create a HTML file without any CSS, it looks very, very ugly.
Yeah.
If you just install Tailwind, it already slightly makes it better already, even without you adding any more styles, because Tailwind has something called pre-flight, which resets all the styles, unnecessary ones, sets a nice simple font for you, and even some more such styles like images are not inline, they're inline block. That's just the first reason for me, especially because every time you'll have to start with some of the other browser reset or similar styles that you need. The second reason is it has colors. For me personally, I don't have to bang my head and think of which colors do I use in this new project.
Oh, wow.
It has over 210 shades predefined, and you need a lighter shade, it's already there. You need a darker shade, it's already there. Sometimes for when you hover over a button, you need a slightly darker shade to show the hover state, right? And you don't have to go and pick another dark shade. You don't have to do all those hex values or anything. Nothing. In Tailwind, it's extremely easy to use and set up a color palette that looks great as well. And it has so many such utility classes which can be used for generating nice little shadows, and amazing utilities for flexbox, for grid, and all of that. So what you would do with CSS with probably 100 to 200 characters, you can do that in Tailwind maybe with 50 to 60 characters.
Wow,
So
that sounds
if you're
brilliant.
if you're decently good with CSS, then I think building with Tailwind makes it so much more faster. You're not leaving your HTML file at all. So you don't go to your HTML file, write a CSS, think of a name for class name for that particular div, name it something like say card, and then card title, card name, and things like that. You'll have to think of different names and then go to your CSS file, start defining those class, start giving them the properties. Here you don't have to leave your HTML file at all. It looks like inline styling, but with a lot more benefits, and looks a lot shorter than inline styles, of course.
Wow, that sounds very good.
Yeah, Tailwind is readable, though a lot of people disagree. Of course, the HTML looks a little messed up. That's probably the only downside people complain about. Otherwise, I feel it's personally very readable than, card BG or something like that. You can directly see what color it has applied, right? So it's easier to edit, in my opinion. Yeah, those are some of the main reasons.
Well, certainly sounds very compelling to me. I don't know about you in the chat, but let us know what you reckon. There is an interesting question from Binny. I am new to learning Tailwind CSS. I want to create an event website. Can I create it entirely using Tailwind?
Absolutely, yes.
Wow.
It's slightly different from the other frameworks that you have used before, like Bootstrap, because with Bootstrap, there are some components that you can copy, you can paste. There are some colors, yes, but if you want to customize, you will have to add some custom CSS, which is pure CSS. You actually create a class name and then, go and write CSS. But in Tailwind, you can configure, you can customize it to any extent you want and make everything pure Tailwind. So that's yes, you can go ahead and build any website entirely using Tailwind.
That sounds absolutely amazing. A couple of people in the chat saying it's super quiet. Which one of us? Let us know, and we'll try to sort it out. Yes, Dave, we have a welcome for you with your elephant from Colchester as well. People are asking about how it compares with, you just mentioned Bootstrap. There's also Material UI. Yeah, can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, so Tailwind CSS is entirely utility first framework, which means you have a utility for every single CSS property. So I would probably, explain that in the demo. It will be quite evident of how it's different from Bootstrap and Material UI. And also, a starking difference would be not all Tailwind websites look the same, but somehow most of Bootstrap, at least Bootstrap version 4, I haven't personally checked out the latest version, but until then, most of the Bootstrap websites looked the same. It had the same colors, or somehow the moment you open a website, you know that it's built with Bootstrap. Material UI also to a certain extent. I haven't personally used it, so I cannot comment on what the look is like, but Tailwind gives you more option to customize. You don't have to even use the colors of Tailwind, but still use the framework of Tailwind and take the power that it gives to actually, build websites faster.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's quite a lot of flexibility there with using Tailwind, which is quite excellent. Yeah. So some people are saying they can hear me, but not Shruti. But I can hear you fine. And other people are saying they can hear you fine. So I'm not sure what that's about. We will try to carry on our best as we can. I think it's time for the demo. Take it away. So let me know when you're ready to share your screen. And then we will.
Yeah. You can share my screen.
Yes, here we are. So this is our demo, which I'm super excited about. I'll let you take the reins if that's okay, Shruti.
Yeah, right. So this is the Tailwind CSS website. I'm not sure how many of you have landed on this page. But the very first demo, which you can see right here, I was entirely bought. The first time I saw this, I was like, okay, that's it. So you just see, there are some classes, some things that are written here, and this is changing, and it's actually this quick, right? Just right here, you're not leaving this HTML file at all, and yet you can make it responsive. You can do so many things with these utility classes. So the first time I saw, I was sold. So now I would like to show you a demo, which is also a profile card, but slightly different. So let's see what we're going to build in the next 15 to 20 minutes. I'll explain as we go. So this is my profile card, which has a little text gradient for my name, and some text here, an image, and also a footer to the card, which just says some text, and then a button, right? This is the mobile version. So if we just go ahead, this is the desktop version of the same. So it's something quite simple. I initially intended to build an entire portfolio website, but that wouldn't be possible in 20 minutes. So here we are with a short version of that. So I hope all of you are excited to get started with this, right?
Definitely am.
So Tailwind CSS, first of all, is a mobile first framework. So you will have to build mobile first if you know about mobile first approach, which is we style initially for mobile version and then add on the styles for desktop version. So in Tailwind, you have to follow that, which is anyway better, a better approach for the browser and for a lot of things, right? So let's open a Tailwind play link, a similar one, where you can, this is the Tailwind playground. This is the demo they have particularly showcased. So I'm going to just delete all of this, right, and start fresh. So play.tailwindcss.com is what you can go to. Current version is 2.2.15, but very soon, I'm guessing in another max couple of weeks, we will have a 3.0 version, which is a brand new one with lot of new features. You can even right now play with this. It's in alpha phase, but yeah, it will very soon be released. I will just go to the stable version for now, and let's just start. So the way you can see here, we have a body with a light gray background. So anyway, let's use a div for the entire body. And here, the first thing I do is add a background color, right? So here, but even before I do that, let me set the width and height, otherwise you'll not be able to see the background color. So I say W full, which means 100% width. And then I say a minimum height of 100%, like the viewport 100 VH. For that, the utility class is min height screen. So you can see it's auto completing, and you can also see the CSS property and value right here, right? So it's easy. The way, the moment you type H, you can see all the, height utilities. This is height, right? So you can see there's H0, 1, 2, 3 in small increments initially. And then it goes on to larger increments like H12. There's no H13, there's no H15, because when the height increases, you don't need to have very minute adjustments, right? So you have something like this for height up to, height 10 rem, 11 rem, 12, and so on. So many of these up to H96. And of course, you can customize if you need more. For now, let me say I need a min height, which is 100 viewport height, right?
Yeah.
And now let me add a background. So the short for that, the utility class is BG, and then you can immediately see all those, BG gray starting from 50 to, slightly gets darker, 50, 100, 200, 400, and 900. 900 being the darkest. So each of these colors has 10 shades each. So we have BG gray, BG green, and then you can say pink, and then maybe purple. We have indigo and so many such. For now, let's just use gray 100. If you want to check what are the shades available, you can quickly go to the documentation, right, which is right here, and then just search color palette reference. I use this a lot even when I'm not developing with Tailwind, which is a very rare case, but if I have to, I just refer to this color palette. I copy any of the colors because they're so nice to use. So these are all the colors that are available, right? So you have these many to pick from. This is a good reference point. Right, so coming back, now we have BG gray 100. You might not be able to see it. It almost looks like white, but when we add that card, you can see the difference. Right, so now let's add the card, and let's just give it some padding to start with. So for that, the utility class is P. So if you want an overall padding, you can say, padding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So let's give it an overall padding of 6 just to start with. And then I'll say BG white. Okay, so you can see that div is right here at the top. All right, now I want it, okay, let me just use the responsive mode here. So this is the responsive mode. Since we are building mobile first, I'll do this. And now I want a padding for this div as well. So let me add a P12. So immediately you see this white div appearing in between. Now what we need to do is center this vertically and horizontally, right? So this is a joke that everybody struggles in centering a div. So you'll see quickly with just 2 utility classes how you can center this white div, right? So for the immediate parent div, what we do is we add a grid, which is display grid. So you add a grid class, and then you just say place items center. Do you see that?
Boy, mind blown. Well, yeah.
Right.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, that's it. You just need to add these two. Of course, there are multiple ways. You can use flex, and then that would increase the number of utility classes. I find this the simplest, right? And now let's set some width to it, or I think a width will get set anyway when we add some content, but I want to set a max width. So okay, that also I'll do it a little later. Now within this div, we have one which is white, and then this is a gradient background, right? So let's do that, and you'll also see how easy it is to add gradients in Tailwind with the existing color shades, right? So within this div, let me add one. So this is actually the one with BG white and not this, and this will not have padding. Let me just remove that and instead add padding here. So P12, and then let me immediately add another P12, and this is the one that will have the gradient, right? So to add a gradient, let's say BG gradient, and then you'll immediately see some suggestions. That is BG gradient to top. So the one to T is to top right, to bottom right. So it's the direction in which you want the gradient to go. It's a linear gradient, right? So I will select to bottom right, BG gradient to bottom right, and then you need to select 2 color stops. So from which color? So I'll say from purple 700. Do you see the output already?
Oh yeah.
I'll say to pink 700. Yeah. So
look at that. Anything with a built-in gradient creator is right up my street.
Right, so we already have a gradient. That's all we need. Now we need a rounded corner. So you see this rounded corner on the top left and top right for this div, and then we need a rounded corner at the bottom left and bottom right for this div. In CSS, you need to write that entire border, bottom left, radius, so and so. But for Tailwind, you can just say rounded, because we want rounded corners, right? So rounded top, okay, and then you say small, medium, large. I don't know if you're able to see the difference there. Let me just use large. You'll be able to see the difference here when I add it. I'll just say rounded, bottom, B is for bottom, and then large.
Look at that. Fabulous.
It's very intuitive, right? And now let's add the h1 tag where I add my name. So the moment you add h1, it doesn't have any font size or any bold appearance, because that's it. Just all the defaults are reset by Tailwind, so you need to manually add font bold and also add a size. So there are different sizes available, like text XS, text small, text base, which is the default, and then text LG, XL, 2XL, 3XL, 4XL, 5XL. So let me just select 4XL for now. And if you noticed, we have the text also in the same gradient as this. Now in CSS, I don't know how to do this because it's a lot of properties, but in Tailwind, I have learned how to do this. First thing is we add
Oh, a brief technical interlude
text.
there.
Yeah,
Oh, you're back.
make
That's good.
this. Yeah, so we say text transparent. Now it's gone. You can use the clip text, right? We have it. Now this is our heading. Let's go to the paragraph. So let me just copy it from here and paste it. This again doesn't have any styles, and yeah, the h1 needs to be centered, right? So let's do that. So let's say text center. We also need the paragraph to be centered. So what we'll do is, instead of adding it to h1 and p, we will add it directly here. We'll just say text center. I want some little bit of margin on top of this, and also I think this is slightly bigger, so I will say text LG and then margin top. So just M4 would be margin on all four sides, but instead if we do empty 1 or 2 or 3, and you can see the different margins. So let me just add MT2 for now. And then I'd like to use a shade of gray instead of black for all the text inside this design. So I'll just say text gray. So it's not color, it's text instead of color CSS property. So let me just say text gray 700. I somehow think that shade is good. Now it's time to add the image. And if you notice, when we increase, when we go to the desktop version, this is on the left side and this is on the right side, which means we need to use flex. Since we already know that, let's add this entire thing into another div. Sorry, only the h1 and p I'm going to add into another div, which will be on the left side for desktop versions. And then we have the image on the right, but for mobile version it's at the bottom, so we don't have to add any flex for now. Let me just copy the image and add it here. And now you notice that since we've added an overall padding, there is a padding at the bottom which we do not want, so you can just say padding bottom 0. Okay, along with overall padding. You can do this other way. You can set a horizontal padding of 12. So let's say you say px, so that is padding in the x direction is 12, and then padding top 12. So you can do either ways, whichever suits you. And now we need some maybe margin top of 12 again for this, right? So I think we have the top part of this complete for the mobile version, and let's move on to the desktop version. Let's move on to the footer. Yeah,
it looks fabulous already with just a few lines of code. which is very exciting, I have to say, especially the gradient text, because I have before figured out how to do it with pure CSS, and it was a lot of code. Actually, Dave is saying, I know Shruti says she doesn't know how to do it with CSS, but it's exactly the same gradient background, transparent text, background clip text. It is basically the same.
It is the same, but I cannot
process.
remember the property names. They're quite huge.
Yeah, but
Right,
it is a lot longer in CSS, so I can totally see the benefit of doing it with
Yes.
Tailwind. It looks, yeah, brilliant. Tom says, I'm such a noob on Tailwind, but it looks cool. I've always been a vanilla kind of guy when it comes to CSS. I can relate to that. I've always just kind of stuck with vanilla CSS, but looking at this, especially because people seem to be shifting towards using utility classes anyway. Yeah, I could be persuaded. But yes, please continue with this lovely card.
Yes. So once again, we have the paragraph. So we have this heading and paragraph on the left and button on the right. So following the same, let me add the heading and paragraph in a separate div. So let's say H2, and then I say 10 plus years of experience. Again, we need to add the bold and then some size. So maybe text to Excel, of course, text white. Then again, I can add the text white class to the div itself. Great. And yeah, maybe text Excel is good enough. Let me add a paragraph, which is just some, I'll copy it once again, just some lorem ipsum text. Paste it, and this is slightly smaller, so I will say text SM, okay, plus some margin top, maybe MT1. Great. So now let's add a link, so which takes you to nowhere, and yeah, let's add a class. Yeah, link with text. Now I want to make this inline block first, because we want to add some margin, and that won't be possible if it's an inline element. So first inline block, and then let me add BG white, and then a margin top of 4 maybe, and then a padding, horizontal padding of, let's say 6. You'll of course initially it'll be quite hard for you to guess what is px6, like how wide it is, but once you start building, you'll get a fair idea of what px6 is. So if you think that's a lot of padding, change it to px4. Right, so it'll take you some time to get a hang of it. And then let me say py2. I want some rounded corners, so I'll say rounded md, and then a font bold and text SM. Okay, so that looks like a nice button.
Yeah.
Great. So we are done with the mobile version already.
That's amazing.
Right?
It
Yes,
looks
so
brilliant.
it's time to go for the desktop version, and let's do that. So where do we start? Yes, first we will add a flex container. The way we design responsive websites in Tailwind, just give me a moment. So
Keep your, no problem. Keep your questions coming in the chat as well about Tailwind or anything else you want to ask us. Yeah.
Yes, so the container is this, and the way we add media queries in Tailwind is you have some of these breakpoints like SM or MD and LG. If you've used Bootstrap, then you might be familiar with these, LG, XL. So these are some standard breakpoints that are usually used. You can even see the value on the right here when you add them. So we want to change the design at MD breakpoint, where the min width is 768 pixels. So at MD, I add flex. So I just say flex, which does display flex. So now, yeah. So at this point it breaks, but here the image is too large for me just before it switches to flex. So what I do is I add a max width here. So this also has some presets. You can choose max width, XS, SM, and so on. I'd like to choose max width XS, and also add, I want to center it horizontally, right? So I'll say margin horizontal mx auto. So that is margin left auto and margin right auto, which is usually used. All right.
Nice.
So yes, now we have this, and of course we need to use the justify content and the align items on flex. So once again, we need to add the MD breakpoint. So all the styles that you want to add after MD breakpoint, for larger screens, it has to, the prefix has to be MD colon. So I'll say MD justify. So we have justify start, end, center, between, the same thing. Instead of 4 words here, we just have 2 words. Justify between, and then MD. Instead of align items center, we just have items center. So we have that in the center. And for this, we don't need the margin top 12 for the image because there's a lot of gap. We remove that with adding the MD breakpoint here and saying margin top 0.
No.
Right, this is great. And we just want this left aligned. That's a personal choice. If this is okay, this is fine. But to do that, we added text center somewhere, right? Yeah, we added that here. So we can change that to MD text left. Right, so this part is done. We just have the footer part where we need the button on the right. So same thing, just add a flex, MD flex here, and then MD justify between MD items center, but this is not in the center because we have a margin top again, and we can change that with MD empty 0.
All right. Yeah.
That's it. This is complete. Do you see
I
that?
can't believe that. That is brilliant. Yeah, so you can create this amazingly professional looking card in, how long did that take? Just a few minutes.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, that is brilliant. I hope you all found that a nice, useful demo. If you have any questions about this demo or Tailwind generally, let us know. In the meantime, I will see what you're saying in the chat. Yes. Oh, Michael mentions utility first versus utility last. There's an awesome talk. And it's there, but I can't copy that. So maybe, Michael, you can put it in the private chat and then I will share it. Yeah, fabulous. In the meantime, I have a few more questions about Tailwind. I suppose you kind of answered this in your demo, but can you give us a bit more detail about how much CSS you really need to know to use Tailwind effectively? As someone in the chat said, basically you need to memorize a lot of the Tailwind classes before you can use it quickly, basically. Do you find that to be true?
So the first question, you need to know the basics of CSS. So you cannot directly jump into Tailwind. You need to know what the margin does. You need to know what padding does. You need to know some things about flex at least. Tailwind makes it a little easier where you don't have to memorize the entire CSS properties, like I said. But yeah, you might have to memorize the Tailwind utilities. But then again, I didn't memorize. So what I did was I just built maybe 2 projects. By then I already knew what utility classes to start using, right? So for those 2 projects, what I did was let me go back to the Tailwind documentation. So when I needed something like, I need a max height. So yeah, I just type my max. Okay, go to max height. All right, I need a max height of something like 4 rem. Okay, this is the one. Just copy it. Right, so that's how I did. All right, so I need the utility class for, let's say, border radius or border opacity for that matter. So I just go here. So these are the available utility classes. Copy them, paste. Or you can even do what I did, right? You just start typing border. And then you'll see auto suggestions, which is not only available in the play link, but if you are using VS Code, Visual Studio Code, there is an IntelliSense plugin, Tailwind IntelliSense plugin that does the same thing, the exact same thing of what you saw here. When I was typing, you could see, right? It's the exact same version. So it also gives you the CSS property with the value. You know exactly what you're doing, right? So I don't think it's that much of memorizing. Because if you know CSS already, it's just a word here and a word there, and you can get the exact one the moment you have the Tailwind documentation open. And that you need only for a couple of projects, the first 2 or even 3. Then you will know it intuitively. Like I said, it's quite intuitive.
Yeah, it does look intuitive. That's brilliant. And I like that you can kind of scroll through the different options and see what works best. I do have a question about if you're creating your own thing, then I guess you can, do as I said and see what works. But what about if you have a design that you need to stick to? If you're working in an environment where you get a design from a designer, for example, you need to recreate it accurately.
Right. So now I didn't cover this in the demo because that was most basic. So let me go back to that. Let's say you need a particular height, right? So for this image, let's say you need a height of, we haven't specified any height because we just used a width and we let the height, decide on itself. But let's say, like I showed, we have all of these height options, right? But what if you need, let's say you need H68. So, or let's say, this is 256 pixels, right? What if you need an exact 270 pixels? Let's just assume, right? You have 2 options. One is go to the config file, right? Under this extend block, here you can see that 2 colors are customized by default because we needed those 2 in the earlier Tailwind Play demo that Tailwind Play itself showed. So we don't need this actually. You can remove this. And you can add the property here, right? So don't worry about the error. It'll get solved in a minute. So let's say you need a custom height, right? You want some value which is not there in Tailwind. So just go to height and add whatever value that is. So we needed something like 300 pixels, let's say, or what would that be in rem? I'm not sure. Let's just assume, we don't have the value 68 is what we saw, right? So we don't have the value 68, but you need the 68 and that translate to, let's just randomly say 300 pixels. Okay. So this is something you add of your own, and you need to add that within the extend block because it'll extend and add it to the heights that are already available. So if you add it here before the extend, then you'll lose all the other heights and it'll take up only these values, right? So this is some of the mistakes beginners end up doing. So now we can use height 68 here, and that will take up 68. So you saw, of course, it's a little skewed, but you saw that it's taken, and that auto suggests as well. So the moment you add it in config, it gets added in the auto suggestion. Right? So that's just one way of customizing. Of course, you can have your own colors, you can have your own fonts. So you can say color and then add, let's say you have a primary color, which is of, any random, something like this. This is some sort of a blue. And then you can say text primary. Okay, why is that not? Did I add it correctly? Or it might take a moment. 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, that's correct. Not okay. Let me try BG primary. Why did that not happen? Yeah, these things have to happen, right? So let me go to color and see how exactly to customize, right? So text color, and then you can go to the documentation, you can go to customizing, and yeah, there you see it's the exact thing. Oh, it's text color. So I got the property wrong.
Really? Wow.
So it's text color. Where was that? Yeah, it's not color, it's text color.
Yeah.
And then you can use the text color like what I said. Yeah. So you see that changed to that blue.
Wow.
Right. So that's how you customize. You get the exact mockup. You can add whatever colors you need, whatever heights or, fonts also. So if you go to font here, you can even see how to customize it. So font family, go to customizing. You can add your own sans font, serif font, mono, and yeah, this is how you do it. You can add multiple fonts as well.
That's incredible. So there aren't any limits on the customizations you can do. You can do anything you want.
That was one option. I forgot to show you another option. So let's say this is just a one-off thing, right? This height, you might not use the height 68 for any other element on the page because that's very particular to this image. Then you don't have to burden the config file. You don't have to add it here because with the version 2.2 onwards, we have something called just-in-time mode, where you can see the mode is JIT by default, right? Where you can have arbitrary styles, very similar to inline styles, right? So the way we added, where did we add H68? Okay, I think I removed it. So the way we added H68 in the config, I've removed it in the config, note that. So here I'm just saying H and then add square brackets and give whatever value you need. Okay, that's not 68 rem, yeah, but 13 rem, 14, 15, whatever else, 15.5, the way you need it, right? So this is useful, especially when you need it just for one particular element on the page. You don't have to add it in the config file, you can do it. And you can add colors also the same way. So instead of using text primary, if it's just for one element on page, you can add that directly here. And then, yeah, something like this, right? So
yeah, I can definitely see the power of that.
Yeah, and this is definitely different from inline styles, because if you had to do inline style, it's an entirely, it's quite long, right? So this is something, much smaller and readable.
Yeah. Tom Chant has a question. Is there a danger of making sites that look formulaic without the full freedom of CSS? I think what you've just showed us kind of answers that. But I was going to ask you anyway, can you get a bit like with Bootstrap, sites look bootstrappy? Is there a similar problem with sites looking tailwindy, or is that largely avoided?
Yes, that question is answered right in the homepage of Tailwind CSS website. So yeah, because Tailwind is so low level, it never encourages you to design the same site twice, right? So even with the same color palette and sizing scale, it's easy to build the same component with a completely different look. For example, this is the same HTML, all right? Everything is the same, and this is a simple version of this component. Here's something playful, entirely different, right? And here's something elegant. So you see how different it is, and here's something brutalist. So you cannot imagine that something like this is built with Tailwind.
Yeah.
So none of this actually, unless you actually go and inspect element and you see all these classes, only then you will know that it uses Tailwind.
Yeah, perfect. I suppose my only question would be is, how is it with the maintenance side of things? So people often say about CSS classes or variables, the big benefit of that is that you can just switch a color throughout the whole site very easily.
Yes. Right, so two things. One is Tailwind is best used along with other frameworks like Vue or React, or if you're using something like Laravel, where you have components, right? In Laravel, you have blade components. In Vue and React, you divide your components into separate files, right? So you'll maximum have to deal with a code of probably this 20 lines or 30 lines. A component would usually not be longer than this, unless it's an entire single page. Even in that case, I don't think it'll be so difficult if you can just comment, since you're anyway going to use comments, right? So you can just add some comments and you'll know which section you're at. That's the first question. If you want to know like how readable it is, or I don't know if you asked that, but I'm covering it. So if you find something like this hard to read, yes, you'll have to build in components. It encourages you to do that, so you'll avoid adding like 300 400 lines in one single page, and then you can go to that particular file and customize. But if you're repeating, let's say you have this button somewhere else, so let me add another button, and somewhere maybe after this paragraph here, okay, and here let me change the BG to maybe, yeah, say purple, and maybe the text to white. So except for the background color and the text color, rest of the styles are same, and we are repeating it, which is what we don't want, right? So what we do is, let me just bring this closer to the other styles. So what we are seeing is these styles are same, and we might have a lot of buttons in the same website that have all these styles. So what we can do is copy all of the styles, go to your custom CSS file. So we haven't touched this at all so far because we didn't need any custom CSS, but here you can add your custom CSS. Only thing is you need to add it within a layer. So this is how you do it. Button is a component, right? So I'm adding it in one of these layers. You have to add it in one of these layers for it to work. So you decide what layer it belongs to. Since button is a component, I'm adding it here. So this is normal CSS, but I use the apply directive. So there's something called as apply, and then you paste all those Tailwind styles here, right? So you can even use CSS here. So if you don't want to use any of this, you can directly you can ignore this, and you can say display in line block. This totally works, right? Something like this totally works. But if you want to use Tailwind, you can use this and then use this class here. So just say btn, right? So that is retained. You want the same thing here as well, right? Inline block and all of this. Oh, sorry, btn. Yeah, there you go. So
that is excellent.
Some components that do repeat, you can use the apply directive, and the rest of the things you don't have to give this a name just because you'll have to add styles to it. You can directly add it here because these styles might not repeat at all. You might not have the same size heading again, or you might not have the same margin for this paragraph, and so things like that.
Yeah,
that answers the question.
Totally. So I suppose, well, I don't actually know, but I guess not all of the CSS properties are included in Tailwind. Is that right? Yeah.
Most of the ones that are needed are included, and if you need custom properties, yes, you can again there is a way to add that as well. So let's see, custom utilities. So no, this is generating variants. So let's say adding new utilities. Yeah, so see, the scroll snap property is not available in Tailwind, so you can add your own using the same way that I showed you, that is in the layer utilities. Or you can even do that using a plugin. So let's say you're very serious about using Tailwind as a framework for your entire you have a huge set of websites that you develop, and you have one particular let's say configuration, and you definitely need that utility class because Tailwind really covers most of it. But if you really need that, you can even add something like this, plugins. I've never found the need to do this, but if you ever need to, you can.
Yeah, if you get something really obscure, there's a way to add it, which is very interesting there. And Damiano is asking, what about browser support? And Dave reckons the browser support will be exactly the same as vanilla CSS. Is that true?
Most of it, yes. There are some variants, very few utilities like, I think, background filter, background blend mode. Yeah, something like this. This isn't probably yet available in Firefox, some versions. But yeah, there are very few such utilities which are not available, which are there in Tailwind, but not available. But all others, yes, the browser support is good. I wanted to show you some, so like you see, not this. So there is something called auto prefixer that we use. I don't know why disabling. No, so in installation, while you install Tailwind CSS, you also install, where did that go? You also install something called as auto prefixer. So wherever you need prefixes like moz or whatever prefix you need for IE or Safari or anything, that is taken care of by this npm package. So if Tailwind doesn't take care of it, yeah, you can simply use the auto prefixer and it's taken care of.
Amazing. Yeah. That show says more or less 30 lines with Tailwind. Let's try how many lines with vanilla HTML and CSS. That would be very interesting. If you do that, let us know. One thing I want to mention actually is some people watching might be wondering how to use Tailwind in Scrimba. And I will now demonstrate that. It's extremely easy. I've already added it to that one. Let's start a new one. New Scrim. Grab a template, and then in the dependencies section here, you just add a module, type Tailwind. Could not resolve Tailwind. Well, you could resolve it earlier, so I think you can. I think it's doing it. Yes, and there we have Tailwind right there, and then you can just start using it. So that is perfect. How can you use Tailwind on a project locally? So how do you set it up, basically? Is that easy to do? Is it tricky? How have you found it?
Yes, so it really depends on what framework you're using. Let's say the Tailwind already has documentation for all of these, Next.js, Vue, Laravel, and so on. But if you're not using any framework at all and you want to simply set it up, there are again multiple options for that. You can do that using Post CSS. I don't think we have much time for that, but I have, I guess, almost 7 to 8 videos on my YouTube channel, which are dedicated to installation for each of these, right? And there is one, with using Post CSS plugin, one even without Post CSS plugin, one using Tailwind CLI, so you don't even have to install any npm package. You can directly run it without, using the npx. You can also use the Tailwind via CDN, but yes, you don't get any of these benefits, right? So initially setting it up might be a little tricky, but I have made it very easy with in my video on my YouTube channel. So you can just look up, I'll just paste the, I'll just, put it here. Tyrus is the name. And you have the entire playlist, which is Tailwind CSS. So I'm sorry, it just started. So
go and check that out.
Yeah, it has all of this. Install Tailwind CSS as a Post CSS plugin, and then huge with Vue and White. Install with Angular, with Create React App, and so on.
Perfect.
So it has almost 28 videos, 25 videos,
So you should be able to find everything you need for Tailwind there. You mentioned to me that you've written a book recently, Shruti. Would you like to tell us a bit about that?
Yes. So while I was creating a course for another academy, I just found out that Flexbox and Grid are really two of the most advanced tools. They give you so much power, but at the same time, there are a lot of courses and tutorials available, agreed, but I couldn't find real world examples at all. Like, you just go to Google and search real world examples, or I've tried searching everything for Flexbox, and just go to images, and this is all you'll see. Some colored blocks, and just these colored blocks that are, none of this looks like a real world example to me, does it? It just has some outlines and things like that. Very, very few examples I found. So I really felt the need for creating an entire book with as many examples as I could create. For example, we just used this, right? This is a real world example of Flex, right? We used it twice here. We used Flex here and we used Flex here. But, if you haven't used it much, you won't be able to do it with so much ease. The moment I added it, I knew that I need to, justify content, between, and then I can use justify content, align items. I know this because I've seen a lot of examples, which is why I felt the need to create this book which is CSS Complete Guide to CSS Flex and Grid, right? So this is the book which has real world examples. So it has 70 real world examples, no outlines, right? You actually can see examples like I just showed you, something like this, components and layouts and everything. You can even preview the first 25 pages for free. And all those real world examples have CodePen links, so completely working demos, which you can tweak, you can copy, you can do whatever you want with them. You can edit, learn from them, and so on. And this has two versions. So one with entirely CSS and another with Tailwind CSS. So the same components, same layouts with different code built with Tailwind CSS. So you'll see how the same thing differs if you can buy both, for $20 right now. But yeah, I do have discounts, especially for those people watching this live, and that is, so let's say you add 20 here, that's okay, and then you just add a discount code Scrimba live.
Oh, look at that, a discount code.
Yes,
amazing.
yes. So
wow,
you'll be charged $15. You saw that instantly 25% discount has been applied.
Well, that's a cause for celebration if ever I saw it. Fabulous. That sounds like a really useful book, genuinely, especially because you have both examples. That sounds brilliant. Yeah.
And this is it's just been 20 days since I released the book, and it has more than 650 readers, happy readers, 650 purchases, and 22 5-on-5 ratings.
Wow. Well done you. That is brilliant. Yes. Dave says, very well presented, Shruti. Well done. Yeah, I agree. That was excellent. I have never been so convinced that I must start learning Tailwind. So, yes.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose as a final question, I would like to ask, what is the most amazing thing about Tailwind for you?
For me, it has been how it turned me, I used to consider myself more of a backend person. I thought I was more logical. I could build the database schema, build the backend logic, and so on. I never thought I was good at design, but Tailwind has changed my opinion on myself. I now feel I can create amazing designs literally in no time. So yeah, it has taken me from developer to a designer because of the, presets that are there in Tailwind. I'm able to build amazing websites. So yes, I am good at front end now. I'm more focused on teaching front end as well because of Tailwind. So that entirely changed the journey for me.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. So if you feel like a back end person, give Tailwind a spin and you might change your mind. Yeah.
Yes.
Dave says, I might rewatch this video and do the same thing with vanilla CSS. That would answer Lacho's question from earlier.
Yes.
How many lines? Let us know, Dave. Drop it in the Scrimba Discord server. We would love to see that. Would be excellent. Wow, I can't believe that an hour is already up. That's absolutely crazy. I feel like I've learned a lot. So thank you so much for coming to see us and showing us that incredible demo, Shruti. It was really brilliant.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for the opportunity.
No, it was wonderful. And if you liked this, let us know, because we've already had a few demos before. So if you like this format, yes, give us a shout and we'll try to do some more. And in the meantime, Michael and I are back on Friday. Yes, live coding a retro screensaver. And yes, it might look like a demo, but it's not. It's us desperately trying to code. But yes, fantastic. So I hope to see you all then. And in the meantime, give Tailwind a spin. Yeah. Thanks again, Shruti. I'll see you all later.
Yes. Bye-bye.